It is really my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today. I've worked in many, many communities, and one of the most important things that comes up in all of the discussions in all these communities is our education system. I can't imagine the innumerable number of times when I've been interviewing physicians or other executives for jobs, and the thing that they ask about almost in every case is, tell me about your schools and how important that is. And so here we are today to talk about our school system. And literally, I think all of us in this room, because that's who we are, want a school system that the staff and the teachers and the parents and the kids in our whole community is proud of. So it's my privilege, since you've seen the background, to have Rob Anderson come and talk about his passion about this. And every encounter I've had with Rob, it's all about the kids and making sure that we have a school system that everyone here in this room would be proud of. So with that, Rob, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? This is not your average Rotary Club. Goodness gracious, this is amazing. I've had a chance to speak to plenty of Rotaries over the course of my career, and by far this is the largest. So thank you all for being here. It's my honor to be here, share a little bit about myself, about some of the things we've been working on in the district, and some of the places that I think that we hope to go together as a school district. This isn't your average Rotary Club. It hasn't been an average week. Right, and so most weeks there's 5 days in the week, I get at least 4 nights sleep. Not this week. As I'm sure all of you know, on Wednesday across the state of Colorado, we had a serious incident involving a troubled teen who flew here from Miami, and we actually had to shut down all of the schools in the Denver metro area. Really scary situation. It's an unfortunate tragedy how it ended, but As citizens of this community, please know, first and foremost, I'm always going to do everything I can to make sure the kids are safe. And if that means having a closed school, then that's what we're going to have to do. We take safety very seriously in Boulder Valley schools, but I know that was a topic of mine, and certainly at the end, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. And so I've got a presentation that I'll work through pretty quickly, just to give you some context as I begin to speak. And is it all right if I'm standing here? Everybody can see me okay? That's okay. I was about to say, well, it's not going to be as big as the internet, but hopefully we'll be able to condense it around a little bit. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. So 22nd year in education, 16 of those years were spent directly in schools, serving as a teacher and a leader. Started as a Title I math and science teacher in Orlando, Florida, taught in a school that had 100% students free and reduced lunch, 100% African American, in some of the deepest generational poverty in Central Florida, and really felt like as I wanted to become a teacher that I wanted to genuinely make a difference, and found the school that I could find where I thought that they needed somebody the most, and spent 3 amazing years there. The lessons I learned as a teacher at Memorial Middle School in downtown Orlando, Florida, still sit with me to this day. After spending several years there as a teacher department chair, moved through the ranks in Orange County Public Schools, which is the 9th largest school district in the country, 200 schools, 200 plus schools, 200,000 students. Became an assistant principal, was a high school principal for 8 years, and then 6 years ago got a call from somebody I'd worked with previously who I think I can kind of get going here. I worked with previously and asked me to come help him in Fulton County in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I spent the past 6 years prior to coming here in July in Fulton County in Atlanta, Georgia. Anybody from the Atlanta area, Georgia? Yeah, huge district, lots of complex problems to solve. Spent the past 3 years there as deputy superintendent of academics, and was able to do a lot of great work with our team there, closing achievement gaps, raising performance, and just really navigating what's a really complicated system. On a personal note, I'm married happily for 17 years to my best friend Jessica. We've got 2 kids who couldn't be happier to be in Boulder Valley schools. My son Ben's a 6th grader at Louisville Middle, and my daughter Kayla is a 9th grader at Monarch High. And I can't tell you as a community member, as a dad, how happy I am they are in our schools. They're being served so well. I think when you move across the country for a job, and my family was with me, but you want to cross your fingers to make sure things go well, and I couldn't be happier. They're doing really, really well. So that's a little bit about me. As we think about our school district, there's tons to be proud of when you think about Boulder Valley Schools. Our state's rated us accredited with distinction, which is the highest rating that the state can rate a school district. We have 31,000 students, 4,000 employees, 500 square miles from Netherland to Broomfield, a huge district, 56 schools, serving 11 distinct communities, and just really an amazing place to be a part of. As I'm going to go through a couple of the highlights, and then I think what is our biggest challenge as we move forward as a school district and a community. When you start to look at average test scores, we blow the competition away. And you could stand these test scores up against any community in the country. An SAT average score for juniors of 1139, I mean, it's almost, it's easily 120 points above the state average. Just amazing accomplishments. Graduation rate of 92.1%, which is well above the state and national average. 71.4% of our students go on to pursue secondary options, which is fantastic. And so these I think are things that many of you probably know. How many of you have or had kids in our school system? So I'm among friends. Very good. I would say, and I don't know if the slide's in here, Randy. The biggest challenge that we have, and because you've had kids in our system, you know this, is not with our kids who are achieving at these high levels. It's the achievement gaps that we have to deal with. When you compare our kids on free and reduced lunch compared to our kids who are not on free and reduced lunch, when you compare our white students to our Latino students, our English-speaking students, and our students where English is a second language, we have some of the biggest gaps in the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado, which has some of the biggest gaps in the entire country. And so while I can sit up here and celebrate and tell you we have things that are going very, very well, I also want to tell you the things and problems that we need to work on. And that is making sure that we're providing opportunities in each and every kid. And so as we talk about strategic plan and the work that I've kind of done over this past year, that will be a theme that arises. And so I'm a big believer in telling and being very honest and transparent, telling the good news with maybe the not so good news. And so lots of things that are going really, really well. But we do have this challenge. But it's a challenge, I'm convinced, that if we work together, it's something we can overcome. The heart of this community, just look at this room of Rotarians, of folks who are committed to service. Everywhere I go, people don't just care about their own kids, they care about all kids in this community. I'm convinced with the great achievement and so many great things that are already going on, and by tackling this achievement gap, when we do that, we'll be the very best school district in the entire country. And that's my hope and my vision for Boulder Valley Schools. So I arrived here in July 1, and before I got here, it was very important for me to have a really explicit, detailed, thought-out plan to spend my first 100 days on the job, with the understanding that even with the best of intentions, without a plan, your time can go go like this, and you wouldn't understand and know what it is that you've been able to accomplish. And so came in with a plan focused on 3 areas: engagement, excellence, and equity, with 27 subpoints, and focused really, really hard on making sure that we did lots of things to get to know this community, what's going well, and the opportunities to get better. So I did a lot of traveling. I visited every single school in our district and spoke like this to every single teacher. All 4,000 of our employees I tried to get in front of and tried to tell them several things. Let them know who I am, what I believe, why I was here in Boulder Valley Schools, and what I hope to do as superintendent, and had honest and great conversations building relationships. So went to 56 schools, met with teachers and staff in each one of our buildings, had over 200 parents to come to 9 community meet and greets that we hosted in all of our high schools. We did 6 of those in English, and we did 3 of those in Spanish to make sure that we're engaging our Spanish-speaking population. And during those times, in everywhere that I've gone, especially within the first 100 days, I asked lots of questions. 4 questions in particular. What's going well? What needs to improve? What advice do you have for me as a new superintendent? It's amazing how many people say call more snow days, right? so surprise, right? Especially when you talk to kids, although teachers might have been more excited. And then the last question that I had is, what's one thing that we could do that would make us the very best school district in the country? And so spent those first 100 days not only engaging, meeting people, but trying to collect a lot of feedback around those questions. And that feedback really was helped us springboard into a new strategic planning effort that we're undergoing, that we've been undergoing since January, where we're really starting to think about, it's a challenge in a community in a school district like Boulder that's already doing so well. What are the ways and how can you get better? And I think that that's what our focus truly has been. And so we've been engaged in planning efforts, not just within our district, but throughout the community over the course of the past several months. Our timeline really hopes to get us to where we have a completed strategic plan ready to roll out for the public with strategic initiatives and action plans hopefully by August. Strategic plans, a lot of folks who do strategic plans, unfortunately, once they're done, they sit on a shelf and then they're never realized. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. And I will tell you that the theme through our strategic plan is all about students. We didn't allow anything in our strategic plan not to directly relate to what it is we want to happen for kids. And so we've already worked through some strategic outcomes that talk about making sure all kids are challenged and have great opportunities, that we reduce those disparities in achievement that I referred to, and that we make sure that kids have what they need so they're ready for postgraduate success. That may be college for a lot of kids, that may be career for some kids, it may be the military. Whatever it is that they hope and dream and they want to do, we want to make sure that we're measuring how well we're doing, preparing them for that. And so our outcomes will drive everything, all of our strategy and the things that we're doing within that plan. And we've broken that up in themes around teaching, supports, harnessing the talent and passion of our community, and really this idea of a great place to work, a great place to go to school. We want the kids to be smart and happy, right? We want our employees to be thriving and happy to be where they are. And so these are the things that will hopefully drive our strategy moving forward. So we're really, really excited about that. Other work that's been happening since the 100 days is, as I looked at our organization, I realized that there were some opportunities, even though we were doing well, to improve. And I'll show you this next slide, and this is the slide I led this conversation with our leaders around, and asked them the simple question: what did these companies have in common? You remember these, right? And so I'll do the same thing I did for them. So what happened to Kodak? And just shout out what you think happened to Kodak. Didn't adjust to the technology. Who knows who invented the digital camera? Right? Blockbuster, you don't think that they had a read on streaming technology? Right? They actually had a really great offer from Netflix to buy them out, but they didn't feel like they needed it. That wasn't going to be the technology that changed. And we think about Sears, just these great companies. And I draw some parallels to Boulder Valley because we have to be very careful. When you're a really strong organization, a great school district, we could easily sit up here and say, well, we're Boulder Valley. And you always, in my opinion, have to be thinking about how can you continue to get better so you can stay at the top of the game, which I believe Boulder Valley is at. And so as we thought about our organizational structure, right, we're thinking on one hand on here's where our strategy is going, right? We want to make sure we're doing these great things for kids. But you have to change other things, and it's your people and talent aligned with your strategy that's going to make these outcomes happen. And so as we looked at our organization structure, very hierarchical, very old school, very traditional, and we really wanted to change to something that was more empowering, efficient, and effective, and in evolving the way that we think about our district office, specifically around those folks that are in our academics division who are challenged to support kids, and then our school supervision division, which were overworked and underfunded, and really merging those two groups. And we looked at it through the lens of a principle. And if those of you that work in large organizations, then you may be able to relate to some of this. You can erase principle and put whatever your title might be. Our principles, as I was talking and engaging and going out and getting to meet everybody, felt like they had 100 bosses. Anybody ever feel like that in the way that you work? I have 7 bosses for sure, the school board, and that's hard enough. But when you're in an organization and you're trying to get things done and you're navigating bureaucracy and you're a principal, you can't be where you should be, which is in classrooms and supporting students, right? And so we want to change from something that looks like this, where there was lots of competing priorities, lots of people trying to do the right things, but maybe not necessarily synced up, to a place where the principal and the school becomes the center of our organization. And so the theme that we've adopted is our job within a central office is to support kids and schools, period, end of discussion. And it felt oftentimes in speaking with principals that they felt like their job was to support the district, right? And so we've made some pretty significant changes in regards to our org structure to make sure that we do this. You as a principal, our schools should be able to make one call to get things done. They shouldn't have a Rolodex and having to try to navigate our organization. So we've tried to streamline the ways that we provide supports and services to our schools. And so the design that our team came up with is, instead of having a whole huge central office and then 1 or 2 people that supervise schools, we're breaking our district up into 3 different support networks. Right, so we have an East support network, a Southwest support network, and a Northwest support network. In our old model, we had 2 people that supported like 16 secondary schools and 2 people that supported 36 elementary schools. And it wasn't working. It wasn't giving us the supports that we need. And so we've created this organizational structure we feel like is going to be great for our employees. And we feel like as we roll this out, it's also going to be great for our community. What should happen is if your kid is at a school in the Northwest Support Network and you have an issue, you should be able to make one call. You shouldn't try to pull up our website and try to figure who it is that's going to be able to help you. And so not only do we feel like this is going to be a benefit, not only for our schools, but also for our parents and for our community as we think about making sure we're providing the right customer service and supports. In each one of these teams in these support networks, we have all of these different roles that will be helping, that we can deploy out to schools to support and help. Early childhood education, special ed, data assessment, equity and partnerships, instructional practices, advanced studies, curriculum, attendance, dropout prevention, mental health, STEM, student service, language arts, English language development. And we've taken reading, which was buried within our language arts and humanities department, and have broken that out separately because it is critical to make sure that we have kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. I'm sure you've heard the statistics, you've heard the anecdotes on the importance of literacy for our young kids, and we have to make sure that we double down on those efforts, and so this model does that. And so strategic plan, lots of work, instructional reorganization, lots of work. Really, really excited about Full Day K. Who's been keeping track of what's happening with Full Day K? I'm proud to tell you today, in August 2019, we'll have full day kindergarten as an option for every single kid in Boulder Valley schools. And I was shocked when I moved here. Now, again, I lived in Georgia and Florida, maybe states not known for their, for their education per se, but both had full day K. I was shocked that we didn't have full day K. We fully support the governor in his efforts. We've been working hand in hand to help him and support this. But our staff and our team knew that we had to move fast. Right? Even with this great news pending, if we didn't make some preparations and planning ahead of time, then it would be another year where we didn't have full day K for all of our kids, and that just wasn't good enough for us. And so we support the governor in these efforts. We know there's no time to waste. We know that if we want to make a difference for our kids, especially as we think about closing those achievement gaps, you can't give up a half a year instruction and a developmental age that's so important and critical to the development of students. And we want to make sure that at our earliest opportunity that we give each child the full potential. We know that their full potential starts with our earliest learners and making sure that we focus on that. And so making sure that we do this, has taken some work, right? And so we have a plan for not only building our facilities, and within our last bond program, I want to thank you all as taxpayers for supporting that, because that's really allowed us to get a jump start on this work. So we have the facilities ready to go for full-day kindergarten. We have a hiring fair keyed up and ready to go, a professional development plan, and equipment and materials to make sure that not only we'll be able to offer full-day K in August of 2019, but we're going to do that really, really well. And so we know that the ink's going to dry on this bill and the governor's action here within the next couple of weeks. But I'm here to tell you today, we've got the inside scoop. We feel really good about it, and we're moving forward in a quick and intentional manner. So those are some of the big things that I've been working on. And again, it's just been such an honor to be here as superintendent. It's just been an honor to be a member of this community, to get to know the wonderful folks, and just to feel the heart of this community, and so many people willing to stand up and help. We have so many great things going on, and I still think we can get better. And so it's just a joy to be able to share some of that with you. So with that, I'm sure there's going to be some questions, so I'd love to open the floor to any questions. Yes?
So there's a couple of things, but when you're talking about the high achievers in, the achievement rate and so forth, particularly among high school students, one of the things I've been reading about, and we've all been hearing about, is the stress level that these young people deal with too. And so how do you balance that? I mean, what are we doing to make sure that they're not only learning, but they're leading lives that are enjoyable?
John, that's a great question, and I think it's a challenge. The great news is that, and I moved from an area in North Fulton, very high performing, very high pressure, and there's a cost to that, right? There's certainly a cost. I think that we have a solid focus on what we in education would call social emotional learning, right, that really tries to help kids manage stress, to let everybody know that it's okay, that you have to manage and balance your life. One of the priorities that we have in the budget that we've developed is adding additional counselors. And so this is the third year in a row we've added additional counselors to school. I still think we have work to do in that area. But I would tell you that it's something that's on our mind all of the time. Certainly want to do kids to do well, but we need kids to be happy. For my own kids, for my own daughter who is struggling with, she's a 9th grader. What do I got to do? Dad, do I got to take this? I said, the first thing you have to do is be happy, right? And we're going to work with you, and you're going to end up, and you're going to be okay. And it's that collective mentality of a community, because a lot of the pressures in my experience come from parents. And they're trying to do what they think is best for their kids. They want their kids to have better than they had. And there's a tipping point that you've got to be careful of. And so something that we're really focused on. That's a great question. Oh, yes.
Regarding technology, what is being done directly to assist the kids in proper internet usage, cyberbullying, and social media?
This has been an ongoing conversation even before I got here. So I started in July. I came in May for a board work session. And for those who've been reading the paper, you know this, and showed up to a boardroom filled with dissatisfied parents. We have had a fairly aggressive push out of one-to-one technology. And so on one hand, I think that's a really positive thing that all kids have access to technology. But I think the safety, the security, the cyberbullying, all of those other things is areas where we need to work. About every board meeting for the past few months, we've been working through our policies, working through our data privacy policies, working through a couple of areas which I think are emerging, and that is how do we make sure that kids are limited on the amount of advertising they're being exposed to? How are we monitoring and communicating to parents the amount of screen time? One of the decisions that I've made throughout the course of this year is to take technology and this efforts around what we call one-to-web and move it over from our IT division to our academics division. Because technology should be helping you teach what you want kids to learn. And that needs to be the focus. And so that's my commitment, is to continue to make sure that we're keeping kids safe. We're leveraging technology in ways to help them get a great, engaging education. But we're also working with our parents to understand when enough is enough around screen time. Trust me, I've got a 6th grade boy and a 9th grade girl. I'm fighting the same fight at home, right? Just like all parents are, like how much is enough? And so it's a topic, it's an emerging topic, it's ongoing, but it's something we've put a lot of focus and attention to over the course of the past several months. Yes?
I know a lot of districts are cutting back on arts and music and other things of that kind. I know the Boulder Valley has a great system right now. Where does that stand in relation to, are they on the chopping block
Nope,
for other
absolutely
artists?
not. It does us no good. It's short-sighted to make sure that if you start to cheat kids of those opportunities. I'm proud to say we have a very balanced curriculum and a very balanced approach. We have strong arts programs, strong elective programs, strong physical education programs. Because of the generosity of our taxpayers, we have less really difficult decisions than some of my counterparts in other places across the state. And some places are in dire straits, right? There's no doubt about it. For us, we're not, but I'm always going to be committed to making sure we have a well-rounded curriculum, and those opportunities and experiences, as I think about my education as a kid and the ones I want for my kids, is something we can't compromise.
Yes, I wanted to thank you for coming to Boulder and our Rotary Club. I also want to say that my kids went to Fairview High School and really loved it.
Great school.
By the way, I went to Grady High School in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, very good. Good to see you.
We make a connection there. My question is essentially a lot of the advising, since we have such high achieving schools, I know from having my kids have gone through Fairview, that a lot of the advising is built around kids.
Right.
Because they come into the advisor first, second, and third, and they're there, and the counselors don't have as much time as they would like. Mm-hmm. So the low achieving, the poorer kids kind of get left out. So I'm wondering how you're going to address that challenge.
And I would say there's a correlation between that and some of the results we see from our kids that are growing up in poverty. I think that we need to be very sensitive to that. We need to make sure that we have lots of great options. I would say an area that we can grow, and I'm so glad that Arlie is here because we're very lucky to have Arlie. He headed up Warren Tech in Jefferson County, for those of you who are familiar with that program. We have an opportunity to expand our career and technical education programs. Post-secondary education is changing. And there are so many industries, and I saw this firsthand in Atlanta, and I'm sure the same is the case is here, where we're running out of talent, right? Talent's at a premium. When you think about healthcare, IT, manufacturing, the areas that this area needs talented workers, there is opportunities for us to be able to start that training in high school and get those kids with industry-based certifications, get them with the job skills aligned to local workforce needs. As we evolve within our strategic planning processes, I think you'll see some evolution there. But we need to take extra special care with our subgroups of students who aren't doing as well as other kids. Our free and reduced lunch kids is a population that we're really dialed in on, creating more opportunities, providing them the right guidance and the right mentorship to make sure they're not falling through the cracks, I think are 3 areas we'll be focusing on. Oh, I think we've got back here.
Can you comment on the role of charter schools in the district and where you see that going?
Sure thing. So we have 5 homegrown charter schools. And the difference between a homegrown charter school and a charter management organization is a homegrown school is really is grown out of the local needs and desires and wishes of a community. And I think our district has supported those really, really well. I think charter schools can have a place and can have a role within a school system. The difference between a charter and a traditional school system is they're able to, in some ways, waive a lot of the rules, regulations, get away from some of the bureaucracy that could potentially bog down some schools in some areas. I'd hope to think that we aren't trying to bog our schools down. I think our schools have tons of autonomy and are able to do those different types of things. But the 5 charter schools that we have in our district, I think, are thriving, are doing really well, and we're going to continue to support. I think this is a big conversation happening not in our state but across the country. When does charters make sense? When does having a program within our district make sense? And I think it's something that we're always going to have to balance. The last district I was in, we were actually a charter district. So we gave all the schools within our school system charter-like flexibilities. We let them waive state laws. We let them waive district policies to try to spur some of that innovation. And we also had a portfolio of about 10 charter schools. So I'm really familiar with how charter schools can work and help. And as we think about trying to reach our long-term outcomes for students, we'll continue to support support the charter schools that are thriving here. And then as new charters who may want to be part of our district come through, we have a process to see whether or not they make sense. I will tell you one dynamic that's happening within our community. As you look at our student projections, and this is going to take this can play into whether or not we want to bring in new charter schools. You have really high home prices and low birth rates, right? So what we're seeing is less and less kids coming into our elementary schools, and we have a bubble that you wouldn't feel if you have kids in high school because those are still pretty crowded. But we, over the course of, I think the next 10, 15 years, if you're listening to state demographers, are projected to lose 1,500 kids, right? And so when charter schools open up, I mean, you know, you're buying seats in schools twice, and if we have schools that have room, you will have to think about the fiscal impacts of whether or not we want to continue to grow in those areas, and how do we mesh that to make sure that we're giving all kids what they need. But I think that's a great question, so hopefully I had a chance to answer that.
So, parent of a child. Parent of a child. She had very good services and was fully included in all classes. And I know that today there's less of that and less support services to students with special needs. Do you have ideas, and I know it's a money issue, do you have ideas on how to bring more funding to the schools?
Well, I think that right now the legislature is actually contemplating some additional funds for special ed in this next fiscal year. We're excited about. Over the past 2 budgets that we've passed, we've added services for special education. I think there's about $2 million in this budget geared towards opening up new programs, a couple programs for artistic kids, and then also some additional para supports. I do think that I'm really proud of the programs that we have in special ed. There's lots of kids from surrounding districts that come to us to be served, and we have sent less kids out of our school district over the course of the past couple of years to get the services that they need. I'm a big believer in least restrictive environment and making sure we're inclusive, and we'll continue to do that. You know, money's always a battle of priorities, but you know, when you're thinking about what's right for kids, we continue to invest in special education. So I appreciate your question.
We have strong employers here in the county. What partnerships do you have or are you looking at in order to take advantage of that to help prepare our students for those next generation of positions?
I would say we're not doing enough of that. I would say that as you think about the partnerships that we have at our fingertips and opportunities, I think that's low-hanging fruit for us as a school district. If I were to go back in my slides and talk about the strategic plan, this idea of having strategic partnerships and having our entire community rowing in the same direction, I think is one of our great opportunities we'll be able to take advantage of. We do have partnerships. My hope is that our partnerships continue to align and strengthen the opportunities that we have. I'll tell you one area that I don't think we do a great job in is this opportunity of internships and work-based learning and work-based experiences. Think about the opportunities that are right here. And we aren't doing a good enough job at that. Now, the great news is we have Arlie. And Arlie, in working with CTE, we've already had these discussions on how do we connect with businesses. How do we allow our local businesses to tap into our talent? Recruit them early and hang on to them, right? Because you've got talented kids that are growing up right here on your at your doorstep. So that's a great point, and I think it's something we have an opportunity to get better at.
What is your opinion of open enrollment?
It's the law in Colorado. I think you can look at this one of 2 ways. I think open enrollment gives parents tons of choice and opportunity. And I think if you're not careful, a wide open enrollment system can compromise the neighborhood schools that I think a lot of folks desire, right? And so I think that the law dictates what we do. I think we try to have systems to manage that. But I would say those are the two opposing forces that you have to watch when you're thinking about open choice. I've always personally sent my kids to the neighborhood school. Even when I lived in Orlando and we lived in a neighborhood that was integrated with other neighborhoods and it was a Title I school, I just always believed, I always wanted my kids to go to school with the kids on the block. And some folks that I know have had tons of choice and have moved kids around to the programs they feel like work for their kids. And I think both answers are right. I just think that we have to make sure that we do everything we can to keep an eye on the potential negative impacts that open enrollment can have, while also honoring the law and making sure parents have choice. 1 in 3 kids in Boulder Valley schools go to a school outside of their home school today. And so we have lots of choice, certainly.
Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Anderson.
My
It was
pleasure.
really wonderful to have you. As you work through some of these challenging issues, such as opportunity gaps and helping open the doors to internships for students, just know that you can count on us here at Boulder Rotary to be partners with you. Today we are happy in your honor to contribute 100 doses of vaccine to the Polio Plus Fund. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you all so much. Truly an honor.